Welcome to R&R Livin' Life. Rick and I start the episode as we leave Dimbulah and continue along Wheelbarrow Way, passing through Petford with its range views and Almaden, through savannah landscape, termite mounds and limestone bluffs, and on to Chillagoe. After checking out Chillagoe, we backtrack to Petford and take a rewarding and enjoyable drive through the ranges between Petford and Irvinebank. We had followed Wheelbarrow Way as far as Dimbulah, named after gold miners of the late 1800s who transported their belongings in a handcart along a 143-kilometre route, and encompasses some of the richest and most important history between Mareeba, Dimbulah and Chillagoe. The drive took us through ancient landscapes with spectacular escarpments and transitioned from agricultural land to rugged savannah country. For most of our journey this morning, we were following the railway line that takes the Savannah Lander to Almaden and then on to Forsyth. I found it interesting the number of bridges that had to be constructed along this section of the line, and marvelled at the terrain those early miners traversed. We crossed a number of seasonal waterways, and I then realised the need for so many bridges along the railway, having to cross these watercourses, and the beginning of the ranges on both sides of the road. About 5 kilometres from Petford, we crossed Emu Creek that had a historical marker showing where the Edmund Kennedy expedition camped with 100 sheep in 1848 on his failed expedition from Rockingham Bay near Mission Beach to the tip of Cape York. A rock with a brass plaque now commemorates Kennedy, who was fatally speared before reaching his destination. Just over 30 kilometres from Dimbulah, we came across the tiny township of Petford, surrounded by cattle country. Today, there are only a few houses accommodating a population of around 20 people, and a railway siding that no longer operates, but the line still exists, with the Savannah Lander tourist service passing through. While there was not much to see there today, other than a very quaint railway station established in 1900 to serve the local tin mining, Petford definitely marks the entry into the outback and Gulf Savannah region, said to be Big Sky country. From Petford we continued along Wheelbarrow Way for about another 30 kilometres to the small railway siding of Almaden, with the rail line that runs between Mareeba and the mining and cattle town of Mungana, 15 kilometres west of Chillagoe. Almaden was once another bustling mining township on Wheelbarrow Way, but today its population sits around 40 people. The Almaden railway siding was formerly a crucial junction for transporting silver, lead and copper ore to the Chillagoe smelters. It served as a busy hub with extensive sidings and a long island platform. The Almaden siding was also the junction for the branch line to Ironsley and Forsyth, opening between 1909 and 1910. While the original station closed in 1940, the location is a significant heritage site and is an active stop for the Savannah Lander tourist train. Just out of Almaden, the road turned to gravel with slight corrugations for about 20 kilometres. We kept a lookout for cattle and horses which wander freely across the unfenced road. We passed an abandoned marble quarry where we could see large, colourful and cracked marble blocks, remnants of a former mining boom. The area, known for its extensive karst landscape, includes several sites with abandoned machinery and marble deposits. We saw where quarrying had been carried out from the flat, weathered and smooth blocks left lying in piles around the site. On entering the Chillagoe region, we were amazed by the dramatic landscape created by massive limestone bluffs and rock formations through rough savannah country. We knew we were getting close to Chillagoe by the chimney we could see perched on top of a hill. Chillagoe, in its heyday from the early 1900s, was once a thriving mining town for a range of minerals, but most of that, apart from a small zinc mine and some marble quarries, has long been exhausted. After the gold rush in the 1880s, Chillagoe's population grew to thousands in a new mining boom. However, the much anticipated mother lode of copper did not materialise, and the state government took control of the smelter until production ceased in 1943. Our first stop in Chillagoe was at the park, and then a walk up the main street. Like the majority of other small rural communities, Chillagoe just seems to be hanging in there, if not for the spectacular karst landscape and the mining and smeltering history. From the park we made our way out past the sports ground to the Chillagoe-Mungannon National Park to check out the Balancing Rock. Balancing Rock, an impressive limestone boulder that appears to be precariously balanced on a narrow base, showcasing the narrow forces of erosion over millions of years. The 440-metre long return loop was relatively easy, although it did have rocky and sometimes uneven surfaces and steps through the bush. Balancing Rock, like all karst systems, contains unique ecosystems and act as natural archives of past environments, preserving fossils and evidence of climatic changes. The dramatic limestone landscape here was created about 400 million years ago, when Chillagoe was the site of a shallow sea with thriving coral reefs. Over time, the limestone formed by these ancient reefs has been folded, stretched, heated and weathered to form the jagged, glittering limestone bluffs and underground caves of this remarkable limestone landscape, forming a belt 5 kilometres wide and 45 kilometres long, primarily consisting of fossiliferous reef sediments. From Balancing Rock we made our way out to the historic copper mines of the Old State smelters. From the 1890s to the 1940s, this site processed copper, lead, silver and gold, and we could see the relics of Queensland's industrial heritage. There were interpretive signage providing more information, while access to the actual site is restricted due to remnants of pits, tanks and asbestos and other toxic contaminants, as well as the area is unstable. It was interesting exploring the designated walking track that took in the historic views of the smelter on one side and the scree piles on the other. From the car park and viewing point we had a great view of the three chimneys: the pre-treatment chimney, powerhouse chimney with the octagonal section, and the main smelter chimney on top of the hill. We looked at other remnants of the smelter and the giant slag heap. We saw the remains of the railway formations and embankments that extended from the smelter and pre-treatment areas to the smelter junction siding on the Chillagoe railway line. Ore and slag were transported around the site in small horse-drawn rail trolleys on narrow-gauge rail lines, which crisscrossed the smelter site. On the top of the rise we saw what was left of the assay's office foundations. The vast abandoned Chillagoe smelters were unprofitable and dogged by political scandal, but they created thousands of jobs, boosting North Queensland's prosperity for 50 years. Seemingly frozen in time, the remnants are a reminder of the technology of minerals, particularly copper, silver, lead and gold smeltering at the turn of the 20th century. The physical remains of the smelter retains evidence of the historic smelting processes that are extremely rare to find today. Rick and I spent most of the morning exploring Chillagoe, though in hindsight we should have stayed longer, but had planned on exploring more of this area, so left the towering chimneys, massive rusty ore smelter ruins, mining history and an area dominated by striking limestone bluffs and towers, remnants of a 400 million year old ocean bed, set in this hot and dry environment, and made our way back to Almaden. As usual, seeing the landscape for the second time puts a different perspective on it, showing up something we missed on the drive west. However, there is nothing like the classic open savanna with sparse vegetation, eucalypt trees, termite mounds, dry creek beds and red dirt. Not far east of Almaden was the turn-off to Irvinebank and Herberton along the historic mining trail. What a great section of road! Through particularly rugged, hilly country, past abandoned mines, old graveyards, and remnants of a 2-foot gauge tramway built in 1907. The scenic route wound its way through hilly terrain and over some tricky creek crossings with interesting remnants of mining and the railway. It really was a rugged area surrounded by dry savanna, and I marvelled at the miners who came to work the diggings. I can only imagine just how tough it was for those early miners who came to the area. At Eureka Creek there were more remnants of the original road and rail alignment, as well as old bridges and ore bins. It certainly wasn't a road to be driving at speed on, as it was narrow, one-lane gravel, with some corrugations and a couple of cement causeways. The road snaked its way in and around the hill country, with short, relatively straight sections on the flatter country, crossing short, sharp waterways, some very rocky, while others were quite sandy, and quite a few blind crests. We wove around bends and over undulating sections of road. Quite often through the trees we could see the Atherton Ranges, I think they were. It really was an enjoyable drive. There was evidence of stallions in certain areas by the piles of manure along the road, and happened to see a couple of mobs of horses, though we are pretty sure they were brumbies rather than station horses. For such a narrow road, around 50 kilometres between Petford and Irvinebank, it was in pretty good condition, and the only thing we had to watch out for was the washed-out waterways, wildlife, and those unexpected branches that were close to the road. The region west of Herberton and Irvinebank was incredibly productive in the 1880s to 1910, and it was also a period of boom and bust. Many of the settlements were abandoned due to the collapse of tin prices, the depletion of easily releachable oil, or the high toxicity of mining practices, especially in the silver-lead sites like Metabulin, leaving behind abandoned mining towns, ghost towns, and remnants of the late 19th century tin and mineral boom. Many of these sites were abandoned in the early 1900s as mine closed or mineral prices fell. We drove alongside of and crossed Emu Creek, with the area historically linked to the mining town of Emuford, and now abandoned tin mining site from 1881, named by prospector James Mulligan after finding an emu's nest with 4 eggs. The town site is situated beside Emu Creek, but there is nothing left but some remnant structure of ruins in the scrub beside a Cobb & Co marker. It wasn't until 1911 that a commercial operation was built, and this was ongoing until 1985. It was a bustling mining area and site of the intact Emuford Battery, but the region was heavily impacted by the Irvinebank Mining Company under John Moffat. His influence was so pervasive that the economy of Cairns and its hinterland rode on the prosperity of his ore wagons. For a generation, the Irvinebank Mining Company controlled the region's economic and cultural character, promoting every mining town, many now long disappeared, and other short-lived rushes in the region. During his lifetime, Moffat controlled more than 100 companies, while also controlling numerous base metals, including tin, silver, lead, zinc, wolfram, coal, and many other metals in North Queensland. The grazing industry between Petford and Irvinebank operates in a challenging climate, as well as in terrain that is often mountainous and rocky, which can make maintaining ground cover that is essential to retaining soil moisture and nutrients difficult. Breeding and grazing are carried out on native pastures. Abandoned mine sites also pose risks, as often using former mining land for grazing includes potential soil contamination that impacts livestock health as well as wildlife health. Currently, the grazing industry is grappling with declining land conditions and carrying capacity, with many sites showing reduced productivity due to woody weed thickening and pasture degradation. The landscape out here is harsh yet beautiful as we followed the Atherton Ranges through the tropical savanna ecosystem. In some of the streams we saw signs of iron staining from historic acid mine drainage. We passed nearby Metabulon, a historic, largely abandoned mining locality and former Cobb & Co. stop, about 20 kilometres west of Irvinebank. Silver was discovered in Metabulon in about 1884, and by 1896 the town had 4 hotels, 3 stores, a hospital, a courthouse, a school of arts, a post and telegraph office and police station, but no church. This small mining township was situated on Gibbs Creek, a branch of the Walsh River. Water for the town was derived from 2 large dams and several good natural water holes. In 1891, Metabulon had a population of 485. By 1900, the estimated population was 120, and in that year the smelter was dismantled and transferred to Mount Garnet. 3 years later, the hospital and school buildings were transferred to Irvinebank. Metabulon had a life of less than 20 years. We crossed Gibb Creek a couple of times, about 4 or 5, as it wound its way around the ranges, and in one place we saw remnants of the original rail alignment on the southern side of the cutting before reaching Irvinebank. Originally known as Gibbs's Camp, Irvinebank, a tin mining town that refuses to die, was established in 1882 and boasts many century-old buildings, including Loudon House, the home of the town's founder, John Moffat. On arriving in Irvinebank, we stopped to check out the dam surrounded by eucalypt bushland. The dam is also known as Loudon Weir, a heritage-listed timber and concrete structure constructed around 1885 to support the local tin battery. The weir was built on Gibbs and MacDonald Creek when the Vulcan mine and the tin battery were built. Irvinebank really is a hidden treasure, nestled in the rugged hills west of Herberton, full of heritage, history, and truly stunning rugged scenery, granite outcrops, and eucalypt forests. This secluded and isolated tin mining town is amongst the rugged ranges, was designed for mining rather than anything else, especially major transport routes, as the road into and out of it can attest to that. Rick and I hope you have enjoyed this episode amidst one of the most diverse geological regions in Queensland and through small close-knit towns with a rustic authentic outback feel. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next episode as we continue on to Herberton and back into Mareeba. Cheers for now. Cherish every moment. Rick and Rosemary. R&R Living Life.